Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. Um, Paulie P was in the news over the summer, and now he is back in the news. And on its face value, Dr. Lopkin, for our listeners out there as well, doesn't completely make 100% sense to me. 911 call. He says he knows the guy. No cameras, no body cams. What's your assessment of this?
Yeah, there's a lot that's hanky about this. I'm not a big fan of tinfoil hat
No,
conspiracies.
no, not at all.
So, so let's just go over what we actually know for a fact and what we don't know. So, the facts are Paul Pelosi was attacked in his home by a deranged man
Yes. Who, of
who's
course, the mainstream media has pinned on in some ways MAGA, even though he's, by all accounts, an extreme nudist liberal. But that's
yeah,
another issue.
that's actually something we know for a fact. He is not MAGA. He is actually an extreme leftist. He's been living in a commune. Um, he has in the past posted very liberal items on social media. And in fact, one of the things he yelled about was the fact that Nancy Pelosi kept him from getting all the things that he was supposed to get. Well, that's what the left has been yelling that, they're not delivering on their promises to basically give them the world. So, yeah, we know for a fact he's not a MAGA. Some
But
other
according
thing,
to the press,
well,
though, especially and Joe, what's her name again on MSNBC? Amazing
Joy Reid.
how anyone could watch that. And I'm not exactly a fashionista, but going on the air with purple lipstick might not be the best idea. It's hard to be taken
Well, but
seriously. It's kind of
yeah, but let's go through what we actually know.
okay.
Okay? According to the police, this crazy guy took the hammer away from Paul Pelosi. He didn't bring the hammer, he took it away from Paul Pelosi. The Capitol Police had live video feeds of the Pelosi residence. And yet they weren't watching at the time. Nobody saw what was going on. The neighbors reported tons of security vans around the Pelosi residence. Nobody saw this guy come in. According to the police report, the glass that was broken with the broken window
From the
was
inside.
was broken outward. So somebody broke it from the inside, not from the outside trying to get
Can I
in.
just interject one thing about that? I'm an aficionado of giving away my age of old, Columbos and all that.
Yeah.
That's always one of the keys in terms of, whoa, it's broken from the inside. So yes, it's a big clue. Let's just leave it at that.
Yes. So these are the things that we know as facts. We also know that this guy brought zip ties. Now, the speculation is he was trying to kidnap Nancy Pelosi. This is speculation. We don't know that for a fact. There has also been speculation that the zip ties were part of some gay role play between him and Paul Pelosi. We don't know that for a fact. What we
Okay,
know,
but there is speculation in that regard. There's been previous rumors. Plus, why was the glass broken from the inside? Why on the 911 call did he allude to the fact that he knew this person?
yes.
There was also reports about that he was in his underwear. I don't know too many, kidnappers that operate in their in their boxers.
Well, we also know that the alleged kidnapper, the person that assaulted, is out of his mind. This was confirmed by the guy's family. Um, he had a he had a wife. We do know, according to his wife, that he once disappeared for a year and came back under the belief that he was Jesus Christ. So we are not talking about someone in his right mind.
Does it have any effect on the election?
None whatsoever.
I
The-
100% agree with you. I think it was because the liberal media and the Democratic establishment is grasping at anything they thought that was a Hail Mary. It's completely evaporated.
it has. It's got no effect on the election. This has very little to do with politics. It has to do with divisiveness. It has to do with mental health.
And it
You
could
know,
have
and
to
it
do with Paul's lifestyle. I
yes,
mean, he was out partying when Nancy was gone. The cat's away, the mice will play. DUI, there's still some missing information in that regard, and we just don't know. And it
exactly.
seems very interesting to me that there's no house videos. There's no videos of any kind from neighbors'
Yes,
houses, like any kind of 48
this
hours mystery on CBS. There's more video than a blockbuster store, and that there's none to be found. No body cams, nada, nada, nada.
yeah, this is one of the most secure residences in the country, and
World.
yet somehow all of the video, nobody saw it, nobody captured it. The head of the Capitol Police actually suggested that they need more manpower to protect all politicians because of the divisiveness in the country. Now, I'm going to suggest a radical departure from this. I think we need to remove all security from all the politicians, and maybe they'll stop promoting the divisiveness, knowing that they're not protected from it.
I think that obviously that's never going to happen,
Yeah.
but the concept has legs because they're insulated, they're in a protective bubble both from who they're discussing things with and also who they're coming in contact with. Plus, maybe the whole concept that crime is exploding in many areas of the country might also come home to roost.
Yes, if they didn't have all this private security, maybe they wouldn't be so quick to defund the police.
There we go. Well, we'll have to see how this story unfolds. I think the real big takeaway is I scratch my head a little bit about Paulie P's lifestyle and their living arrangement. That's neither here nor there. I'm not exactly a
Well,
marriage therapist.
there
And
is one
also the go ahead.
there is one other thing to keep in mind, and it could be that this had nothing to do with Paul Pelosi at all, because the residents, this is actually the fourth attack on the Pelosi residence, all by confirmed left wingers who are mad at her for not supporting defund the police, for not supporting the squad more. So that's
Yeah.
something else that could have entered into this.
And I think a big takeaway is that's his lifestyle, exactly what you've just indicated in terms of not left enough for Nancy, and but also the final kind of takeaway. No, there's two other takeaways. I think it has no legs for the election, the midterms, and the
No.
other takeaway is how quick, let's just call it the mainstream media, was to jump without any facts, without any inclination exactly what was going on, that it was MAGA and it was spawned by the far right Republican ideology with no
Well,
facts.
that's the only story they have. They are desperate to try to rescue the Democrats in the midterms, so they immediately go to MAGA. What I think is actually more significant than any of this is that they arrested this guy immediately, kept him in jail. In San Francisco and New York, if you are John Q. Public and you are attacked with a hammer, They arrest your attacker and then release him with no bail. So, why does Pelosi's attacker get special treatment when
Because
the
they don't
rest
want him
of us,
speaking.
that could be, but I think it just goes more towards the hypocrisy of the left.
I think it goes towards both. If he starts talking gibberish about left wing, craziness, then it blows up the whole. Not that it has legs anyway. We both agree with that, but just blows up the whole narrative. But we'll see how it all unfolds. Again, Paul's had a very interesting year. Speaking of an interesting year, one thing I have to say about Carnivore Radio, we kind of sometimes we do nail things, you and I, and we kind of were. I think we had our finger kind of on the pulse in terms of, the odds um, the percentage or probability of Democrat versus Republican. The House was never in play, but I think we kind of nailed it. There was a recent by the 538, a political pollster and organization that really kind of focuses on this. They're predicting 53 seats taken secured by the GOP, and that's substantiated by Dick Morris, who, yes, is kind of flaky at times, but I think has some good insights. Basically, just came out today saying the GOP just secured the Senate by Mark Victor, who was the independent who dropped out of the race in Nevada, and basically has not Nevada. I'm sorry, in Arizona as endorsed Masters. He also believes Oz is going to win, and as well as Vance, which I definitely certainly agree with Vance, and that goes to a interesting comment by Joe Rogan on his podcast, and basically saying the Democrats are manufacturing Republicans. Interesting. So a lot to digest, but let's talk about Joe Rogan's comment that the Democrats are manufacturing Republicans. I actually agree with that, especially when you have soccer moms, moms that are suburban moms, the big swing vote in the last election that went towards Biden. They see wokeism, they see sexualization of young kids, and they see rampant crime. I believe Mr. Rogan is correct.
He is correct. And this was borne out by the fact that between August and November, suburban women's vote went from favoring the Democrats by 16 points to favoring the Republicans by 20 points. And the Democrats have done this to themselves because they have focused on transgender issues, which, let's face it, if you take a look at the battles from Leah Thomas to the affirmative action, you're favoring transgender over women, and women don't like that. They also remember last year's Virginia's gubernatorial election where the Democrats said, well, these are our children. No, 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 no. These are our children, the parents, not the state. And the Democrats have been on the wrong side of every issue. They spent a fortune on abortion ads, thinking this was going to propel them to keep the House and the Senate. The problem is the pro abortion vote. And I have said this publicly, I am pro choice, but the pro choice vote is primarily located in deep blue states where nothing was going to change because those states have already protected abortion rights.
Yep.
So these women are now going, "Oh, doesn't abortion isn't an issue in my state. It doesn't matter." You know what is an issue? The fact that I just spent $100 on groceries and didn't buy anything. The
You,
fact that my kid has just gone back to school, I had to buy a whole new wardrobe, and I spent a fortune on it. And
yeah,
now I've got sports club fees and school fees and lunches
yeah,
and every
yeah, I
dollar.
agree with all of that, but it's also the Republicans were infamous with snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And I'm sorry, in this case, sorry, Democrats, you kind of screwed this one up because they had the momentum in the summer with the Supreme Court ruling on Roe versus Wade. But of course, they couldn't help themselves and they drank too much Kool Aid and they went to the extreme, like abortions at the time of birth, which most women do not support. So they went from, yeah, okay, yeah, that's really, they had some headwind, or I'm saying some wind behind their sails, and they screwed it up by, again, becoming the freaks that they've represented themselves to be in almost every aspect of political life.
Actually, I'm going to say that that had a lot less of an effect than people think. Because even when, according to the mainstream media, the wind was at the back of the Democrats and they were all talking about abortion, in every poll, abortion never cracked the top four concerns of voters. It has always been inflation, the economy, crime, and the Democrats never addressed any of the issues that the voters thought were important. They tell the voters what was important, not listen to them. And this is common for them. Hillary Clinton just made a statement either yesterday or the day before saying, well, the voters don't understand what's important.
Well,
The
she
Demo-
also came out with saying that the election of 2024 is has the real possibility of being rigged. Who's the election deniers? I agree with what you're saying, and I think you're 100% correct. It's fourth or fifth on the list of priorities, especially as inflation and other issues heat up. But I do think I still stand behind what I said, and that is that the Democrats did not help themselves by going a bridge too far.
no, they certainly didn't help themselves. But I think that was only part of the equation. And in fact, had the Dem I think it would have helped the Democrats if they had said, we will deal with this when we win the midterms, instead of putting forward that fakakta bill in the House that allowed abortions all the way till birth that didn't even have Democratic support.
100% agree. Again, focusing on the midterms, I have to get your opinion. I'm sure our listeners would want this as well, because I certainly do. The Obama effect. Obviously, you have a disabled president who has no popularity, and basically at the last stop in Florida, they're sending him to areas that aren't even contested. He didn't exactly know what century we were in. And also on top of that, he just continuously lies. But the real issue is, what is the Obama effect? Is he still relevant enough? Does he still have the pizzazz, the rock star effect to have any impact on this election, the midterms?
I think the Obama effect is going to be negligible, if anything. First of all, it's too little, too late. If they wanted Obama to really have an effect, he should have been out several weeks ago. But more importantly, the Democrats think Obama is going to rally the younger voters. Younger voters don't care about Obama. Obama hasn't been on a ballot in 10 years. The younger voters, he's irrelevant to them.
I
And
wait. I got to interject something because you're 100% correct. Not only has he been out of, let's say, the in the electoral process, and even to some degree, he's been in a Martha's Vineyard enjoying his millions and Go figure, 20 years ago he was making minimum wage as a community organizer. But also some of the issues he's talking about are things he was drumming up 10 odd years ago. Republicans are going to get rid of social. People aren't thinking that. So he's not even he's irrelevant in terms of younger people just by his absence, but also what he's kind of almost like Rip Van Winkle. He's resurrecting the old shtick that got him, where he was in the first place. But it's 15 years ago.
But let's take a real look at his election performance. They're going, oh, he's going to rally the base. He's going to rally. Really? At this point in his own presidency, he lost 60 seats in the House, lost the
Great
Senate.
point.
He was, in his own words, shellacked. He campaigned for Hillary Clinton. She got beaten. He does not have the following the Democrats believe. The only people that really hold Obama in high esteem are people who were already going to vote Democrat anyway. If you're on the fence, if you're considering staying home, what Obama says has no effect on you.
Yes. Also, I agree with. I'll interject another point. He lost some of his slickness. He's become kind of the angry version of the old Obama.
Yes, he's an angry old man now. Not as angry as Joe Biden, who, by the way, I don't know if you caught this brilliant piece of brilliance by our president, but Joe Biden stated that Democrats are hitting the ground hard and they know how to campaign. When they had to campaign to keep Obamacare, they campaigned in 54 states.
Well, yes, no, that's true because we are in the the 24th century. Yes.
Yeah,
so he's completely out there.
Yeah, and this is why they need to put Obama out there because let's face it, who are you going to send on the campaign trail? Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren? None of these people.
Oh, how about Mayor Petey, Cutie Petey?
Well, Mayor Pete is ineffective.
Yes, and he's also becoming more irrelevant.
But at least when he talks, you don't think that his mind is gone.
That's
which
true.
is where I was going with Joe, Bernie, and Elizabeth.
It's quite a crew, no question about that.
Barack Obama can still generate an audience, and the Democrats want that. It's not so much what Obama's saying going to influence anybody. It's the Democrats are desperate to show that somebody in the party can generate people at a rally. And to give you an example, Lee Zeldin, who's the Republican candidate for governor of New York, showed up in Borough Park, Brooklyn. Not an event. He was just there to talk to people, to see what's going on, to shake some hands, and generated a spontaneous rally of over 1,000 people. Joe Biden hasn't generated 1,000 people in his entire campaign.
His entire career.
Yeah, I mean.
But on the Kathy Hochul, that's very interesting because I think the polls are wrong. They say Zeldin's pulling. I really, just my gut, I feel he's ahead. And they're panicking like hell. They got all the big guns going in New York because talk about a shot heard around the world. 53 senators plus go GOP. They got the Senate. They got that, and they lose New York.
Well, it's more than just losing New York. The Democrats were so focused on the Senate and to a lesser extent the House, they ignored until it was too late a lot of the gubernatorial races. So now you've got the possibility of a Republican winning New York. You have the possibility of a Republican winning Oregon. I don't remember the last time that was even possible.
Yeah, I think
At
it was
least,
40 years ago, actually.
yeah. I mean, I remember George Pataki, who was a really good governor of New York, and that's something else that I blows me away. How hard it is for a Republican to win in New York. Let's take a look at the facts. You had George Pataki was a brilliant governor. Between him and Rudy Giuliani, they turned New York City and New York State around. Who have we had as the Democratic governors since Pataki? Well, you had Andrew Cuomo, who was thrown out of office. You had Elliot Spitzer, who was thrown out of office.
And thrown out of bedrooms, but
Yeah,
that's another story.
I mean, you've got these, to steal Hillary Clinton's word, deplorables that the Democrats are putting up for office, and yet they're insulting the voters by calling them deplorables.
Do you think Hochul loses?
I think Hochul's going to lose.
I
You
agree with
also
you 100%.
have to remember Hochul has a disadvantage that most people aren't talking about. Hochul did not run for governor. She was on Andrew Cuomo's ticket. So she is left over from Andrew Cuomo, which doesn't exactly help her. But also, she does not have the following because she didn't actually run campaigns.
Yeah, but I also think it's messaging. I think yes, if
Oh,
she
well, her
won, no,
message.
if she won, I agree with you, Dr. Lopin. Yes, it would have had an effect. But her message, not just her beliefs, her stances on various issues, are running diametrically opposed to soccer moms and traditional Democrats around New York and around the rest of the country.
Well,
It's again totally out of touch.
it is. When she says she doesn't understand
Yes,
why crime is such a big deal,
in a
it is
condescending manner.
in a condescending manner. And her focus on crime is still the Democratic platform of gun control. Take a look at what is going on in New York City. People are being thrown in front of subways. They are being stabbed. They are being assaulted. There is not a gun involved in any of these crimes. And she's like, well, we have to get the guns off the street. The guns are not the problem. No cash bail is the problem. And a complete lack of understanding of not just people, but criminals. On The View, uh, Sunny, whatever her name is, made a comment that she used to be a prosecutor, and people aren't interested in broken window crimes. And that's simply not true
That's not true
because
at all.
Rudy
It's a
Giuliani showed you take care of the broken window crimes and the rest get taken care of because it improves pride in a neighborhood. It improves the feeling of safety. And these folks do not seem to get this.
and it also gets criminals off the street
Yes.
that they start out in a community college jumping over the turnstile, and then they get their master's degree by pushing someone in front of into the subway. So yeah, I think also she's a political hack, and she has very little imagination and does not resonate in any way. I believe Zeldin has a very good chance. We will see what happens on Tuesday. And of course, we'll be recording next Wednesday when we'll be deciphering what happens. Speaking of an election, before we move on, uh, speaking of our midterm election, I know we've talked about this, but I would still like your assessment. I'm sure our listeners would as well. What happens to Biden, let's just say 55 GOP senators. They lose the House. They lose key gubernatorial races, including New York. What happens behind closed doors?
Behind closed doors, well, honestly, I think whether or not the Republicans have a major victory or if they just take the House, even if they just take it barely. I think behind closed doors, no matter what happens in the midterm, the Democrats are going to try to convince Biden not to run. The question is, will he go along with them? Because he's
I don't think he has any choice. And here's where I actually do disagree with you on this. If the let's just say if it was in September, if the Republicans squeak out a victory in the House, lose the Senate, then I'd say he has the option, as you just indicated or alluded to run or not to run. He still is the president. I believe if my scenario holds true, meaning what I just articulated, 53 plus in the Senate and a landslide in the House, plus key gubernatorial positions, he does not. I don't care if he says that it's the 23rd century and he has the right to run. They're going to tell him, sorry, Uncle Joe
but
or Amtrak Joe, it ain't going to
here's the
happen, dude.
here's the thing, and this is a matter of election law. Think about how many times he's gone off script and the White House had to walk back what he said. According to election law, all he has to do is say in one speech, I am running. I am going to run for president. That's it. He doesn't have to put together a campaign committee. He doesn't have, as soon as he says that, election law kicks in and he is a candidate. And he actually pointed this out in, I believe it was a 60 Minutes interview, why he says he has not stated one way or another if he's running. Because as soon as he says it, it becomes fact. And the
Okay.
and I think that is a very strong possibility that he may even agree to the Democratic National Committee that he's not going to run. But he will go out at some point and some reporter will piss him off with a question and he will say, I am running for president. And that's it. Game over.
In spite of my cancer. There you go. Yes, you're probably
Yes.
correct. Yes. Now I have to also. I don't know if you knew about this. He has a surprise Washington speech, either a day or 2 days before the midterms. I actually think that could help the GOP.
It could.
No, it could be
Every,
anytime he's there. It's like a clown show. You're guaranteed something.
the only thing that could help the GOP more in the midterms than Biden giving a speech right before the election would be Biden and Harris giving speeches right before the election.
Perfect. Yes, like a tag team. One in
Yeah,
Washington, the other out there, let's say, in some other big city. That would be great. Simulcast. That would put the final nail in the coffin. But I will have to say that the I really believe that the GOP has a rising star. JD Vance in Ohio. Beating Ryan, he will win. And I heard him on the town hall on Fox. Extremely smart. The author of what is it, Hillbilly Effigy or whatever it is. Excellent. I didn't read the book, but I definitely saw the movie. He's very, very articulate, and I think he's a star. I also think that Oz will squeak out a victory. In fact, Dr. Phil said that there's no way in hell he would get on a plane if Fetterman was the pilot. So that campaign's unraveling. I mean, he was
yeah,
even on CNN, and it was he was with Don Lemon, and Don Lemon was trying to keep a straight face, but it was like, whoa, dude,
yeah, I think Oz is going to squeak that out.
squeak
But
out.
I think what I think is actually funny about that is that we know for a fact, because of the process in the Pennsylvania election, that it's going to take, at the
Days.
very least, deep into the night, if not days, to find out who wins. I actually think Everybody's been focusing on Pennsylvania. Everybody's been looking, going, that's going to decide I think the GOP is going to take the Senate before we even know who wins in Pennsylvania.
I agree with you 100%, especially what's going on in Arizona and other areas. Yes, it's going to be like a 52, and that will just be icing on the cake. And I would suggest for our conservative audience and listeners, you may want to listen to whatever or view whatever outlet you would want to view, Fox or CNN. But if it does go the GOP way, must see TV is MSNBC.
Yes,
Their heads will be exploding, and it would
absolutely.
be
They
a
will be
fantastic
losing
TV.
their mind. And in terms of rising stars, I think you're right about JD Vance,
Who's
but I
endorsed by
think
Tulsi Gabbard?
yeah,
Gabbard, yes.
but I think the Republicans actually have a number of rising stars who have come out of this election. Um, Certainly Ron DeSantis. I
Absolutely,
I think Carrie Lake is going to be a rising star.
no doubt.
So what you're seeing is on the Democratic side, you've seen a number of Democrats talk about the fact that they need to make room for the younger generation and the
They
next
have none.
generation of Democrats, but they don't have viable candidates coming up through the ranks. You've got these left wing wackos who AOC has no real political future. If
Let me
she,
interject one thing. It's really, I saw it on the five. It's not my original thought. She's a TikTok celebrity who just happens to be a
yes,
congressperson.
that is absolutely correct. Right now, you've got Ilhan Omar. The data says she might lose her election altogether. So the Democrats don't have these rising stars that they need to really put the party back where it needs to be. The Republicans, on the other hand, have a large number of potential rising stars that are coming up. They're surprising. And what's really funny is that a lot of these rising stars are fairly moderate, but the Democrats labeled them as MAGA and actually helped them in their primaries because they thought they'd be easier to beat.
No question about it. I would have to also nominate as a rising star Tulsi Gabbard, former Democrat. Not saying she's going to, win the presidency or anything. I think she makes a compelling argument on why the Democratic Party has left many
Yes.
sane people.
And in terms of rising stars, I think now we have to put Lee Zeldin in that category.
If he wins, he is the Mick Jagger
Yes.
of the Republican Party, pulling out the unpullaboutable. That's my own word. Going overseas, we have Netanyahu. It looks like he's good for number three. I don't. Well, let me ask you: what impact, if any, does it have on Mideast politics um, of any nature? Does it?
I don't think it's going to have a big effect on the region as a whole. I think it will make Israel feel more secure. I think it's going to have more of an effect on our politics than it
Yes.
will Mideast politics.
Yes, because I think Netanyahu ain't gonna. He's gonna push back big time on numbnuts in the White House.
Yeah, Netanyahu
Ain't
is
gonna take
not
any shit.
going to take shit from Biden. He's certainly not going to take any shit from the squad.
No way.
So I think that's going to be a big thing. And if he can solidify Jewish support here in the US, you're going to start seeing certain things turn around in the Middle East. Because right now, both the United States and Saudi Arabia are on high alert. And I'm really discouraged by how little coverage this is getting in the mainstream media.
Because it doesn't serve any purpose.
Right. They're both on high alert because U.S. intelligence has discovered a plot from Iran to bomb targets within Saudi Arabia. Of course, Saudi Arabia, not big fans of Joe Biden,
No,
but
and wait,
if
no,
you
and
remember,
because incompetency creates a vacuum. If Donald Trump or any competent, even George W, you know, they're not going to attack Saudi Arabia. But with Weekend at Bernie's at the helm, why wouldn't they? There's no repercussions.
but I think there will be repercussions because of Donald Trump and the Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia, Israel, several other, they all have treaties now, thanks to Donald Trump.
Yes.
If if the GOP takes both houses, then they are going to vote guaranteed to support Saudi Arabia against Iran, to help Israel despite what the squad wants,
Screw the
and
squad.
Biden is going to be forced to go along with it.
Oh,
So
and
I
then wait,
think
it creates another opportunity. I think that would be I think, and I believe Iran is doing this to, in part, not in total, to 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 um, to change the narrative in their own country with the protests. Okay, change
all
the
right.
focus. But if you think of this logistically, Israel has a huge problem in taking out Iranian nukes. If Iran is dumb enough to attack Saudi Arabia may just give Israel a base or cooperation between the two countries below the surface with Israeli technology assisting. It does not, and thank God it does not help Iran.
No, it does not help Iran at all. And the other thing to keep in mind is that even if the GOP lose the Senate, because there's no chance that the GOP at this point is losing the House, any so called treaty that Joe Biden gets with Iran has to be ratified by Congress. There is no way the GOP is going to ratify the Iran deal. So, as of, you know, when this coming Wednesday, any hopes for an Iran deal are dead.
Gone, absolutely. Shifting gears on a much lighter note, Snyder, the owner of the, I guess, Washington Commanders, I guess is, and there was some pressure on him as well to sell the team. I say good riddance. He the total lack of, forget about what he did behind closed doors. That's despicable enough. But he's just like a little child. Okay, I'm not agreeing with, I don't know, don't really have a big position if the Redskins logo or name had to go or not. But what did he do? He purposely said the Washington football team. And even when he switched, or he named them the Commanders, which is, I can scratch my head on, there's no logo. He basically has given up. So good riddance to him. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a non-entity at this point. If he sells, fine. If he doesn't, quite frankly, I don't think either decision is going to help the Commanders win games at this point.
No, that's never
So,
going to happen.
you know,
But anyway, very interesting. So, lot, and it's going to be a great carnivore bite on our Wednesday recording session because, well, I think you're right. We're going to have results in spite of Pennsylvania on both the congressional and senatorial side. It's going to be a great show.
not to mention all the gubernatorial races. And
True, true,
it is
true.
absolutely amazing to me how many deep blue gubernatorial, congressional seats are now toss ups. And we're going to take a look at all the results on next week's
And
Carnivore
its
Radio.
implications, because I think it's going
Yes.
to have a huge come to Jesus moment in the, like a referendum in terms of the Democratic Party. I think, and your parting comments on this, the squad's days are waning anyway. I think it puts the nail in that coffin.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a last ditch effort after all of this to say, oh, the reason we failed is because we didn't go far enough to the left. Main Street's not going to put up with that. Democrats, moderate Democrats, are finally going to go, all right, you know what? You still haven't learned your lesson. You're done.
You're fired, as Mr. Trump would say.
Yes.
So great show, and they can access our listeners and our audience can access on almost every platform, can't they, Dr. Lop?
Absolutely. You can catch every episode of Carnivore Radio at the Carnivore Radio website, xvadio.com/podcasts, Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and any platform that respects freedom of speech.
Excellent. Great show this week, but next week I'm really looking forward to that one.
We'll see you then.
Take care.